Hello, thank you for inviting me to the Triumph conference. I'll talk about driving gender diversity in the tech industry. My name is Dr. Ishani Roy, and I'm the founder and CEO of Serein, working on diversity, equity, inclusion, and safety in the workplace. So, what is diversity? Let me ask you the question: what does the word diversity mean to you? Whether it's in the workplace or in society or around you, in your friends groups, anyone. A lot of people would say that diversity means differences. Diversity typically in the workplace is thought of as gender diversity. Are there more women in the workplace? Should we have more women in the workplace? That's called gender diversity. Yes, that is true, but that's not what diversity always is, right? It's about where you come from. It can be about which city you are coming from, whether you're coming from a small town or a big town. What language do you speak? We see so many people speaking different languages around us, right? It's not just about which language you speak, how you speak that language, in what accent do you speak English, what about people from different religion, people from different class, people from different caste. All of these things are different forms of diversity in the workplace. So tomorrow look around yourself a little bit and see, what do you see around you. In society you will see so many different kinds of people, but when you go to the workplace, it's not always very diverse. If you look at leadership, for example, you'll see very similar kind of people. It is not at all gender diverse. As you see more and more, as you go up, in the ladder, you will see less and less women or people from minority groups. Now, why does the workforce or the tech industry have such low diversity? Now, research says there are several different reasons why there is such low diversity numbers in the workplace, whether they are women or people from minority groups. Now, let's think about women for a second. What actually impacts whether women choose to stay in the workplace or not? Let me ask you a question. Have you thought of how many women are actually in the workforce in India? Let's talk about female labor force participation, or FLFP. FLFP, or female labor force participation, is that number which says that how many women who are in the working age are actually working in the workforce. Now, what is that proportion? Can anyone guess what is that proportion in India? Typically, people would answer 30%, 40%, or they would say 25%. None of that. Female labor force participation, or FLFP, in India is as low as 19%. That's alarming, right? It's very, very low. Now, isn't that strange? Because India has been doing well economically. As a country does well economically, their GDP goes up. Typically, a country's female labor force participation also goes up, but not for India. Indian labor force participation for women has actually been going down, even though we are doing well economically. That is very surprising, right? Now, if you look at the research, there are several different reasons for that. Let's come to the workplace. What about the workplace that actually pushes women out? Have you thought of organizations' policies? What about organization policies? Which kind of policies? Flexibility policies, maternity benefits, for example, for women to have a creche in the workplace. These all help a lot. But let's think even more basic than that. What about policies on safety? What about prevention of sexual harassment policy? Do you know, even now, there are a large number of companies in India who do not implement a sexual harassment policy. What about safety while traveling? Or when people are traveling outside, do we make sure that they are safe when they are coming back to the workplace? They all fall under workplace policies. Even as basic as having a washroom in the factories, for example, all deter women from being in the workplace. What else? Has anyone heard of biases? There are two kinds of biases, right? Explicit biases and implicit biases. Now, explicit biases are very direct. It is saying, I like this, I don't like this. I like the mountains, I don't like beach. I don't like savories, I like sweets, right? Now, these are very explicit biases. Implicit biases are more tricky. That's in your head. That's embedded in your mindset, which often impacts the decisions that you take in the workplace. Now, let's talk about some of these unconscious biases. Let me give you one example. One is called affinity bias or similar to me bias. What is affinity bias? Affinity bias is what is that I like people who are very similar to me. Now, how can that impact the workplace? Let me give you a scenario. Say, for example, a manager is hiring two candidates. Now, the first candidate is really good, they meet all the criteria and the skill set that they need for the job. Great. Now, the second candidate comes in, and the manager starts talking to the second candidate, and turns out they have something in common. They can have, say, for example, they've gone to the same school, they have gone to the same college, they stay in the same locality, they might speak the same language, or they might have the same passion. They may both like dance, and they start talking about that one common thing, and they really connect with each other. That is called affinity bias. Now, what is the pitfall of having affinity bias? Now, what is the pitfall of having affinity bias? If you think that somebody is great, they really connect with each other, then you will think, oh, this person is going to be great for my team. They're going to bond really well. We are going to work really well together. What you often may neglect to look at are their skill sets. So, affinity bias often prioritizes a person, how you connect with them, over the skill that is required for the job. Now that's not good, right? And there are several kinds of biases like this which affect the workplace. How you hire a person, whether you choose to hire the person, whether you choose to give them the high visibility project or not, they all impact your decisions in the workplace. There are biases called gender stereotypes, there are biases called confirmation biases, the biases called horn and halo effect, all impact whether women or minority groups stay in the workforce or not. Now, I'm not saying that the organization is the only reason that women or other minority groups go out of the workforce. There can be several other reasons. Society is a big one. Have you thought of the gender norms? What are gender norms? Say you have a small child, who is expected to take care of the child? Typically, a woman or the mother. And often that becomes too much, taking care of a small child or an elderly parent. And often women choose to not be in the workplace in order to prioritize their gender norms or societal norms. There can be other reasons too. Aspirations are some of them. Aspirations mean someone choosing not to aspire to fulfill a role of leadership, for example. Somebody typically from a minority group or women might feel something called imposter syndrome, thinking, I'm not good enough for this job. I'll not be very good as a leader. And why does that happen? Because sometimes there is something called role model effect. If you don't see somebody like you may not aspire to do that job. It happens in science, it happens in for leadership, it happens in tech quite a lot. So, aspirations are one reason, societal norms are others. Now, we can't really do much about society, right? We can take small steps to change society. But we can do something about organizations. We can write really good policies. We can also work on our unconscious biases through communication, through trainings, awareness. We can actually circumvent those unconscious biases and create a diverse and equitable and inclusive workforce. Thank you.